So, okay, students, in the exam, if this kind of question is asked related to education, so because your question will give you only 5 marks, so within very few lines, so within 8 or 9 lines, so 10 lines you have to answer. So, any question related to education. For example, what does education mean? In very short, you can be asked what is primary education, or simply you can be asked to write down the views of Mahatma Gandhi about or related to education. So within 10 lines you can answer very well. So in brief, in short, let us try to be aware of Mahatma Gandhi's thought on education. So what he says, Mahatma Gandhi in Hind Swaraj, in this chapter education, what he says about education, and he always regarded that there is an absence, okay, there is an absence of education in our country. Mahatma Gandhi regarded that there is an absence of education in our country, means most of the Indians, they are not interested in education. They always regarded education is not important, and this is why that we don't find an educational atmosphere around us, because we don't find the necessity of education. So there is an absence of education in our country, and country, that is India. Okay, he is talking in Hind Swaraj, he is mentioning the country, that is only India. And it was Maharaja Gaik. It was Maharaja Gaikwar who introduced, okay, never forget this name, because Mahatma Gandhi appreciated a lot Maharaja Gaikwar for this, who introduced education in his kingdom. But is this effort useless? And this kind of language has been used by him, interrogative language, that Maharaja Gaikwar, he tried his best to introduce education first of all in his kingdom, and the effort of Maharaja, can we say that his effort was useless? Such people should be appreciated for their taken steps. So we should not think of this whether his effort was useful or useless, but we must appreciate these kinds of person who are thinking of the presence of education, who are doing something in field of education. According to Mahatma Gandhi, that such kind of people must always be appreciated for their effort. At least they tried to do something in this field. In which field? In the field of education. So who all, okay, that is or whoever is trying to give any kind of contribution in this field of education, that person needs to be appreciated, and it was Maharaja Gaikwar. So now what does education mean, right? What does education mean? Simply a knowledge of letters and instruments. It may be well used or abused. According to Mahatma Gandhi, that we cannot say that education means only to give us the knowledge of letters, that is simply a literacy. Okay, so it is a just like an instrument that depends on us, that what kind of use we make of it, whether we use it or whether we misuse it. So it depends on the individual, that what kind of use they are making of their education, because education doesn't mean only to have a knowledge of letters, to have a knowledge of simply alphabet. So it may be well used or abused. Most of the people abuse it, and Francis Bacon, he also criticized those kind of person who always abused or who always like to abuse education. Gandhi ji is very shocked here or very sad here to feel that most of the Indians, they always make a misuse of their education. Means education in India, it is always abused, and because it is abused, this is why that there is an absence of education. We don't appreciate educated people. We don't find any kind of importance of education still in India also, and this is why that it is always abused. Most of the people abuse it, which is harmful, and Gandhiji regard that it is very harmful if the Indians they abuse education, they don't regard its importance. A few people make a good use of it, and if there are some person who are making a good use of it, who are using this, they are not much more in quantity, okay, because they are only very few people. They are trying their best to make or to avail of it, to use it, or to make the best use of education. Then Mahatma Gandhi he also answers very well that primary education is in India. What is this? A boy learns reading, writing and arithmetic, because in primary education we are given only the knowledge of how to read, how to write and the basic knowledge only of arithmetic, that is primary education. If this kind of question is asked in very short question, what is primary education in Hind Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi, that only one line will be sufficient, that primary education is that a boy learns reading, writing and arithmetic, okay. A peasant has ordinary knowledge of the world, and then we find that what philosophy has been presented by Mahatma Gandhi, that a peasant, a farmer, he has an ordinary knowledge, okay, an average knowledge of the world, because he cannot be called intellectual, educated, and this is why that we always feel that he doesn't have much more knowledge of this universe, of this world, and even he has an ordinary knowledge of morality, and he knows the manner of behaving with everybody. In spite of that, okay, he is not much more educated, he doesn't have the knowledge of this and that, he doesn't have the basic knowledge of this world, of the morality, because moral education has not been taught to him. In spite of that, he knows very well how to behave with others, okay, and there is a knowledge of manner of behaving. So that is very strange, that how can a peasant be aware of the manner of behaving with everybody. On the other hand, we don't find this kind of knowledge among the educated person, because they don't know, they don't know this kind of knowledge, how to behave with others, that is the manner of behaving. But in spite of that, he is not able to write his name, okay, he doesn't know how to write his name. And why? Because of due to lack of education, means he is illiterate, or he couldn't get the knowledge of letters, but he knows very well how to behave with others. So now if we come to this question, that he is very happy, he is very satisfied and he knows very well how to live among the human beings, and to the to the extent that he doesn't need of education. So if we make him educated, what extra things we are going to give him? Does he need any kind of education? But he is not able to write his name due to lack of education. Can education, okay, this is the question that is very important, can education increase the happiness of that peasant? He doesn't need, okay, he doesn't need, because he knows very well how to live among human beings. So can education increase his happiness? Now Gandhiji he says, he tells that he has also got education of geography, astronomy, algebra, geometry, okay, he has got education of all these different kinds of subject. But why? What was the need of all these different subjects? What benefit or what advantage he is going to have from these different kinds of subject, the algebra, geometry, astronomy, geography, because they are not going to help us in our lives, in the struggle of our lives, and they are also not going to give us any kind of that basic knowledge how to behave with others, how to be social, how to be friendly, how to live among human beings. So but what is its benefit for him, and not only for him, means for that person who is getting the knowledge of all these different subjects, but also for other people. Is there any need? Is this society, is this world need any kind of uh, profit, any kind of advantage from these subjects? Okay, so we are not going to do anything for good for ourselves and for the other people. So that was it will be sufficient in exam to write about education. And then few lines you can mention here, that if he has not received education, got. So now the question comes that why, if this kind of question comes, why education is important or why it is necessary. If he has not received education, can he be able to express himself? There is no change in his life without education. So that is another question, but that will be sufficient for you. Okay, only within few lines, within 10 lines, within 8-9 lines, because this answer will give you only 5 marks. So only these lines will be sufficient, because within this answer you have told very well what is education, primary education, and what are the thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi in Hind Swaraj in this chapter.